Oh man, the intro gets me amped. I love it. I'm ready to applaud, baby. Welcome back to More Than a Title. This is a very, very special episode of More Than a Title. I'm your host, as usual, Jarrett, Chief Revenue Officer at Outside the Box Digital. And of course, I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO, Chadeo. What's good, cuz?
You're in the building, man. You know what today is, man. It's Pod Day.
Pod Day.
You know, there's something about Pod Day that just gets you excited. So, you know, just happy to be here. And, you know, listen, Udi, I know the last time you was on the show and we met you in person, it was just us two, but we had to smooth out the testosterone, you know what I mean? So we got a new addition to the family. So let me introduce Nadege, aka The Balance.
Always good, everybody. Udi, it's a pleasure to meet you.
So nice to meet you today.
Yeah, the guy said it's Pod Day. It's a great day. I'm ready to get started. So let's kick it off.
Let's do this.
Well, you know how we like to start every show, G&T, ladies and gentlemen, grateful and thankful. This show is no different. Once again, we've had a lot of good opportunities that just came across our desk this week. We've had a lot of positive conversations. So we want to just say thank you for all the agencies that are reaching out to us. Thank you for all the people that are putting in a good word in those meetings that we're not there. And our name is carrying the way we want it to carry. So we're grateful for that and we're thankful for the opportunities. And we're going to continue to move this thing forward, move the conversations forward, and provide opportunities for the culture, information for the culture. It's More Than a Title, baby, G&T.
Method. I like where you're going with it, baby. And also shout out to our distribution partners, the Alive Podcast Network, the first woman-owned, black-owned podcast network. So if you want more content from creators like More Than a Title, make sure you take out your phone, scan the QR app, download the app, and half of your subscription goes to the content creators of your choice, y'all. So you know we don't just talk it, we walk it. And what a time to be alive, y'all.
What a time to be alive. I ain't gonna lie, before we get the show started, Udi, I'm a little disappointed. What's the weather where you are? What's the weather?
You and my mother both. What did I do this time?
What's the weather where you are?
It is now 58 degrees in sunny San Francisco.
It is perfect. Hoodie season. Udi, I thought you was gonna wear the hoodie, Udi. I thought you was gonna wear the hoodie.
My daughter took all my hoodies away. I don't get to keep any hoodies. I've got a 12-year-old daughter. Okay. She's into the hoodie stage. She grabs every hoodie in the house.
We got to send you a new one. Ladies and gentlemen, just so you guys know, the contents behind that, Udi came on, and to show our appreciation for him being the very first guest, we did a commemorative, commemorative season hoodie with Udi's name on the back. We sent it to him. He actually posted it. We loved it. And, you know, just to say thank you, man. Sometimes you got to say thank you to the people that look out for you. So we appreciate you, Udi. Thank you.
It's buried in my daughter's closet as we speak.
We got to send you a new one.
Definitely sending you a new one, man. Definitely sending you a new one, man. But let's start off. But once again, like we started off before, and Cuzzo just alluded to it.
Yeah,
Udi was our very first guest, and
yes.
for those who haven't heard the story, right?
Yes.
We had the logo, we had a name, and we just had a guest. And Udi was the guest that said yes.
Yes.
And it's transformed into the show that you guys love today. So let's give him the proper introduction for those who may not be familiar with him, right? So he's a powerhouse in the world of B2B marketing. Someone's played a defining role in building one of the most iconic brands in tech. He took the brand from going from zero to hundreds of millions in revenue, helping dominate the revenue intelligence category along the way. His story goes far beyond numbers. He's a 5-time marketing leader known for creating bold, human-centric brands that don't compete, but they stand out. He's also an author, a speaker, a mentor, angel investor, and board member who brings heart, insight, energy every role he takes. Outside of office, he's a proud husband, father of 3, fan of whiskey from her. We're going to talk about that.
That's right. That's right.
And he's also the #1 best-selling author of Courageous Marketing, a must-read for every marketing B2B. So you've seen him at SaaStr.
Boom.
You've seen him at Kaltura. You've seen him at Inbound, Pavilion, HubSpot, every conference. You've seen him in the boardroom, and now he's on his favorite podcast for the second time.
What can I say? I couldn't get enough of you guys the first time.
Gotta introduce you the right way.
And I just want to add something. What Cuzzo left out too was we met Udi in person, and I just love his personality. You know, we had a phenomenal time. We went down to support an event. He let us know that he was going to be in New York, and we went down to support, and it was just nothing but love. It was a phenomenal event. We had a fantastic time meeting Udi in person, man. So I just want to add that, just like a genuine soul in person, man. Like to meet this guy is to love this guy, man. We had a great time.
We did. Thank you for coming, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's take we talked about a lot of tips. Let's kick it from there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the things that have changed, Udi, right? So we know you're still at Gong, you're still running business, you got a lot of things going on, you're #1 bestseller now. Like, talk us through what's happened since we last seen you on the boat ride.
Right. How do we condense that? Okay, so I guess let's start from where we are and go back. So definitely very exciting project. My book just came out a month ago on April 10th, Courageous Marketing. It's been a wild ride, thousands of copies sold on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and wherever people buy books these days. I've been on a whirlwind of a tour that's just getting started. So I've been to everywhere from Atlanta to Denver to Los Angeles. I was on stage with Cynthia Erivo from Wicked in Canva Create in Los Angeles last month. Like, how wild is that? I had Jean-Baptiste open the day on the piano on stage. They wedged me in the middle and then put Cynthia Erivo on the stage. How do I compete with that? I can't.
That's beautiful.
It was wild. It was a wild event. And I just got back. I was telling you before we started recording, I got back from Tel Aviv today. I had my flight rerouted through like 4 different cities. So I've seen the world in the last 36 hours. But it was worth it because I was speaking at a large brand tech conference there. And I've got tons more coming up. So definitely the book has been really, really big. But other than that, I think since we last met a couple of years ago, like AI has taken the world by a storm, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's been absolutely wild. It's changing marketing. It's changing sales. Gong's sales are kind of off the hook because we've incorporated even more AI than we had before that. We've redesigned our category from conversation intelligence. It then became revenue intelligence. And most recently, it is now revenue AI. And what that signifies beyond all the ABC and word salad is that we're moving from insights to actions. We're moving from telling you more stuff and you having to figure out what to do to automating things for you and guiding you on the rest of the things that AI can't do for you yet. So it's a really, really exciting time in the industry right now.
Yeah. Since we talked about the book, I want to start there because, when we interviewed you the first time, I didn't hear anything about a book in the background on that. You know what I mean? And when we seen you, you were talking about, when we asked you like, hey, what's next and stuff, we were talking about some exciting things that you were doing and that, you were doing with the company. So where did the author side come from, right? I know you got a lot of information, but what sparked that was like, I want to write a book?
So I'll tell you first, because you said I didn't talk about it. And that's right. I didn't talk about it until it was ready to come out. There's a #1 New York Times bestselling author, Daniel Pink. He wrote some amazing books like To Sell is Human, and his latest book is called The Power of Regret, which is a very powerful book I recommend. And he had this great post. He said, writing a book is like telling a joke and then having to wait 2 years to find out if it was funny. So that's what it feels like. Method. Right? I'm all cooped up in my room, like not sharing it with anyone. I was working on this for 15 months. So I started working on this in late 23. You can believe that. And what triggered that really is that I've been doing B2B marketing for about 20 years now. And especially during my almost 7 years of CMO at Gong, I got a ton of questions like, how did you do this? And how did you manage that? And you saw me speaking at conferences. And I love doing podcasts. Yours is my favorite, of course, but I love doing podcasts and conferences. And people kept telling me, Udi, you've got to write a book, like share these lessons with the world. And I said, yeah, as if I have time for that. It's a lot of work, let me tell you. Writing a book is a lot of work. We're doing this kind of unscripted. If I mess up with the word here or there, we can always cut it out. And we want to keep it natural. But when you're writing a book, you really want every sentence to shine, every paragraph to tell a story, every chapter to be like golden. That's a lot of work. And I never had time when I was CMO. But then 2 years ago, I transitioned to my current role, which is Chief Evangelist at Gong. We can talk about that. But in this context, it's important because for the first time in 8 years, I had some time flexibility on my hands. And then I thought, well, this is the perfect time to do this. It's now or never. It's still fresh in my head. So I just sat down a few hours a week. And then it got more intense towards the end. And I wrote a draft and a second draft and a third draft and a fourth draft. I brought in editors and designers. And then in the last couple of months, I started sending it out, came out of my little cocoon, send it to other CMOs to get their take on it, send it to a few best-selling authors to get their take on it. And then it was born a month ago on April 10th.
Wow. Congratulations.
Ooh, there you go.
I ain't going to lie, Udi. When Jarrett was telling me, Udi, that you were coming out with a book, I was like, Udi's writing a book? Like, how did he keep that a secret? Like, that was the first question I asked. Like, how did he keep that shit
I was
a
as
secret?
surprised as you are, man.
I said, how did he keep that shit a secret? Like, yeah, that's
Wow.
Love that.
No, I love that. Like, that's so cool. So something that stood out to me is like a chief evangelist. What is that? Like, what does that look like for you? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so there's a small community of chief evangelists. People think I'm the only one, but I'm not. No, I know chief evangelists at other companies, and one that made kind of the profession pretty well known is Guy Kawasaki. He was the first chief evangelist at Apple, and now he's at Canva. And he also wrote a bunch of books. And John Miller was chief evangelist at Demandbase, and there's Guy Elif, who's now evangelist at Webflow, and there's a bunch of other chief evangelists. And what's interesting about this role is that it's quite different in every company because it's usually tailor-made for someone that's been working at the company in other roles. And now it was time for them to transition, and they kind of built the role around the person's passions and skills. And that's what I did here at Gong. So one of the things I love doing, in case you haven't noticed, is talking. I like talking, and I do a lot of it. And I get an opportunity now to go and do all these conferences. Last year, I think I did 75 speaking opportunities between conferences, webinars, podcasts. So I do a couple of these a week, and it's a great way of spreading the good word of Gong and talking about my marketing lessons and helping and inspiring as many people as I can. So that's a big part of my work.
But how has that helped the brand, right? Because I'm a marketer just like you, man. We talk about attribution and all that. You doing the personal brand, you being a C-suite person, right? How has that impacted the brand? Like, have you guys tied that together, your speaking engagements and the lift of the sales?
100%. So let me tell you how we look at it. It's a great question you're asking about measurement. So first, there's something interesting because when I was CMO, I didn't have time for all these speaking opportunities. I was managing a team of 60 marketers. I was in 12 Zoom calls a day. Who had time to travel and do these speaking opportunities? And our current CMO and CRO, they're in the same problem. They've got large teams to run. They're invited to speak at all these events, but they don't have time. But guess who has time now? I do. So I go to a bunch of these events, and I also take a bunch of client meetings. In the last year, I had over 100 meetings with CMOs who use Gong, and I talked to them and their teams about how, as an executive, I would approach using Gong. Now, here's an answer to your question, Jarrett. Every one of those customers is either an existing customer, so I know exactly how much ARR I'm influencing by meeting with them, or they're a prospect, so I know what the opportunity size is, so I know how much pipeline I'm influencing. And so it's those numbers that I put together, and I said, hey, I just met with $3.5 million of active ARR with $5 million of pipeline, and that's the impact that I'm making. That's how I look at it.
You see, but you know what, Cuzzo? He said something that was very important, though. He said something that was very important. The role is created generally for somebody that already has a mastery of being within the company. Absolutely. And number one, and that's not only time within the company, but working different roles within the company. So he's like a master of many roles now. And like he said, like now it's like, what better way to use a person that kind of understands the whole way this thing works, but to now get the message out.
Yeah, but
agreed. You can't take someone who likes being a wallflower and tell him you're the chief evangelist now. That's not going to work. It's got to be someone who has a platform, who has a network, who likes and putting themselves out there. Absolutely.
Yeah, but and the leadership has to understand that, right? So sometimes a lot of companies, not saying definitely Gong is forward thinking in that respect, right? Like they were one of the people. So for context too, sis, right? On LinkedIn, when I first started my LinkedIn journey, Udi was one of the people that was front and center. He was like one of the only ones that were like C-suite. So I'm looking at my posts, I see Udi going, and then I start seeing the account executives. I start seeing the customer success managers. I start seeing the marketing team, sales guys, everybody with a personal brand. And I'm competing with all of them. I'm seeing 30 guys from Gong, and it's just little old me posting, trying to get.
I don't know when they have time to sell anything. They're on LinkedIn all day.
And they took that and developed it to that brand, right? And it just makes sales and everything more easy. But it's the leadership to say, look, Udi's a jack of all trades. Why put him in his role and put a square peg in a, you know what I mean, circle in a square peg? Why would we do that?
Well, I'll tell you, Jarrett, having all these people, and I was half joking about them not having time to sell, because actually some of our top salespeople are on LinkedIn all day. Yeah, like Brian Lamana and Keenan and Kyle Lewis and all these great guys and gals. They're doing a great job. And we've heard from many customers, they said, when it came down to choosing the company we're going to go with, we decided to go with this company who's spreading all this thought leadership on social. Method. There you go. And then we decided They're genuinely excited about their job. We can see how passionate they are to work for Gong. And those are the type of people we want to partner with. We want to do business with those kind of people. So it really does make a difference, and customers do notice it.
Absolutely. And the fact that they don't notice it, right? Like, just from a sales perspective, it made my life so sis. I used to go on calls, Udi, too. Somebody followed me for a year. Never spoke to this person. They never liked the post. They never commented, never anything. They'll go into my DM and say, Jarrett, I've been following you for a year. I love your content. I love this one really posts. I really love this one. But by the way, I'm doing SEO and I need a project that does this, and the third. I have this allocated budget. Can you talk tomorrow? Hell yeah, I can talk tomorrow. I'm free the whole day. You know what I'm saying? Then you get on the call, and then your 15 minutes are just pleasantries, right? And they're like, oh my God, I follow you all the time. I like what you do. We're talking about life. You're building that rapport. So by the time it's time to talk business, all I got to do is solve. I don't have to sell. I could just hear you.
You've got to put yourself out there. If you want to meet new opportunities, you've got to put yourself out there.
Only way.
Message.
I got a question for you though, Udi. You know, you've had a very focused career, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You had a very focused career, and you just spoke about what your role was as a CMO and time management and what you were doing. Now you transitioned to this other role, and now you're on the go, right? You just said, yo, I was on a flight for 36 hours. We have to talk about this, right? How is this affecting Udi, the family man now? You said you got a 12-year-old daughter, right? She's in that preteen stage, right? Like, how does that affect the family now that not only are you like busy, but you're not at the house anymore, like, or even like in the state, in the country, you're gone. Like, how are you balancing this new role now with the family?
As it might sound, but it's a great question. So I have not only a 12-year-old daughter, I also have 10-year-old twins, boy and girl.
Ooh.
Right.
So this is a full house, man.
Right.
Full house. So I'll tell you, actually, in my role as chief evangelist, other than some travel, which I have to do now more than before, because there's event seasons every spring, every fall, and I do go to a lot of events now, but I choose them very carefully, and I almost never ever spend a weekend wherever I'm going, because most of the conferences are midweek. So I'll fly the night before or early morning, and like I'll turn events around in like 24 hours. My daughter goes like, "Are you flying to Austin for dinner?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I'm doing, because I want to be back here to see you tomorrow morning." So I'm going to Austin for dinner. I'll be back tomorrow.
Message.
I love those little clips. So I'm very mindful, and I set the bar high. If I'm going to jump on a plane and miss dinner with the family, it's got to be something really, really important. Fortunately, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I would say roughly half of my events are here locally, which means I get in an Uber, I go to Palo Alto or Mountain View or cross the bridge, do my event, and I'm back to pick up the kids from school. They don't even know I was gone. So that comes in very, very handy.
Yeah.
So let me share a mental model that I use for this, Chadeo. I don't think we talked about this last time, but stop me if we did, unless you want me to repeat it.
No,
There's a model. I did not create it, so I can't take credit. You can all Google it. It's called the 4-burner stove. Did we talk about this, or have you heard about it? All right, this is the good one, guys. So listen up. The 4-burner stove model is, imagine your life is a 4-burner stove. Now, if you're cooking in the kitchen, what happens if you put all 4 burners on full gas? A, you're going to run out of gas very quickly. 2, you're probably going to burn dinner, right? So that won't work. You've got to be mindful and say, okay, I'm going to watch this pot right now. I'm going to put it on high, but that means I'm going to put the others on low, just on a simmer so they don't burn and I don't have to watch them as closely. Now, this is your life. We have 4 burners in our life. Roughly speaking, one of them is your personal, mental, and physical health. The other is your close relationship and family. The third is your career. And the fourth is your social life. Okay, that pretty much covers most areas that we care about. Most people care about. You want to add a 5th one for faith, for something else, go ahead, do that. Whatever is important in your life. But the point to remember here is these are the 4 or 5 burners that you have in life. And I try to be very conscious of today or this week or this year, which burners are on high and which ones I'm putting on low. And that is my version of the work-life balance, because ain't nobody got it in balance. Like, none of us do. Anyone who says have it in balance, they're lying. Okay? Yeah. Nobody has it in balance. But if we're mindful about what we're putting on high, what we're putting on low, we can make better decisions. So if this week I need to travel, I was away from home for a week now. I put career on high right now. I put family. I didn't even go to the gym this week because I don't usually work out when I'm traveling. So I put those on low, but I know this week I'm back to the gym. I'm having dinner with the family every night. I'm not going to miss it. So this week, family and health are on high, and careers maybe a little bit lower. I'm going to cut off from work right after this call today. So you can do that at any Zoom level that you want. You can say, okay, today I've really got to crank up some work stuff, but on the weekend, I'm going to do all the personal health stuff, or going to get together with friends and do the social stuff. And it's okay to say, hey, if I'm in a startup right now for the next 5 years, I've got to crank up career, and I'm going to meet fewer friends and maybe not work out as much as I want to. So that's how I'm thinking about it.
Damn, I love that analogy. My burner's on hot right now. Everything's on hot.
Won't burn the food, Jarrett.
No, it's a great analogy, because the battle, Udi, that we talk to, when we talk to a lot of very successful people, it doesn't matter male, female, it doesn't matter, right? Race, color, creed, none of that matters. It only matters on, like, you want to provide for the family, right? Everybody wants to become stable, provide for their family, you understand, and provide that life. But oftentimes when you have children and you start, building a family and things of that nature, that's where the divide happens, right? You want to provide, but then it's like, how do you balance both when you have a very demanding job like yours is? You understand? Like, some jobs are, like, we were talking to some execs and they're like, an 8-hour day, like, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, I'll be lucky if I can only put in 12.
Right. There's a time and place for everything, Chadeo.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there were days when I was CMO that I was taking 12 Zoom calls a day. I saw my kids less than I see them now.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really enjoying this period now, because
Right.
I feel the kids are in the final years that they want their awkward dad around, and I want to be there for it. I'll come to school, embarrass them, dressed up as a kangaroo, whatever it takes. I've done all this stuff. I've got the photos on LinkedIn to prove it. And so I don't want to be traveling too much. I don't want to be working too many hours right now. But you know what? In 5-6 years, when they forget my name, then maybe I'll crank up the career burner again and do even more. We'll see. But I think being mindful just makes you more intentional and less feeling guilty the whole time, because every time parents are at work, they tend to feel like they're terrible parents. And if they're with the children not checking their emails every 5 minutes, they feel like they're not delivering on their job. I think you can do it all, but not necessarily at the same time. And not necessarily at the same time might mean this year I'm focusing more on this than on that. Or this one week I'm going to explain to my kids, hey, Daddy's career is really important. It not only provides for the family, but I actually enjoy it and I find it challenging and fulfilling. I don't need to be guilty about it. I'm going to be away for a week. You have fun with your other dad. I will see you when I'm back. And then I'm not going to travel, so I can be with you.
Right. Yeah, because we talk about the importance of the support system, Udi. So I'm glad that you talked about that, right? The support system, right? The person that you have that helps you to do the things that you are doing, that allows you that space to go for a week and say, don't worry, I got the kids, right? Don't worry, the household is going to be here when you get back, right? It's not going to be burned down when you get back and we left the fires on, right? How important has that support system been for you throughout your career, and now that you've had children, and now your children are approaching the preteen phases?
For me, it's been immensely important. Right. I've been with my partner for almost 20 years now. It'll be 20 years next year. Right. When I meet a single mom or a single dad, hats off. I have no idea how you guys do it. I have no idea how you do it. Some days I barely cope, and we're 2 parents on 3 kids. I don't know how a single mom or a single dad can pull it off. They're absolutely magicians. I honestly don't know. I know I could not pull it off. We live in the San Francisco Bay Area. We don't have any family in our area because both our families are in Israel. So we don't have the kids' grandparents nearby, which means if a kid's is sick, we've got to take him out of school. It's one of the 2 parents. If one is traveling, the other parent is got to be with the kids day and night, and they're still at an age where we don't leave them alone. So I don't know how I would have done this without having a partner at home to do this. Some people are not as lucky. Not everyone has a supportive partner. Not everyone has other support systems. If you can get them, hold on to them. You're going to need them.
You're going to need them. Takes a village. 100%. We're talking about it though. I'm curious because we were talking about the burner system, right? In order to learn that system, I think you had to eventually get to a point where you was fed up, frustrated, burnt out. What did that moment look like for you? Did you ever burn out?
I think it was I don't have a point in time where I had a meltdown. I've got many meltdowns, but not like one big one. Just the regular day-to-day meltdowns. But I think what I was trying to solve is that constant feeling of guilt that I had, and I know so many other people have. Because as I said, like if you're at work, I'm a terrible parent. If I'm with the kids, I'm a terrible employee. And you've got to stop that. Like you're not. Like we can't be everywhere at the same time. And guess what? When I show up at work after I had a fun vacation with my family, I am so pumped up to do my work. And so nobody should feel guilty about taking that time off, whether it's going to your kid's concert or ball game or taking a week off for spring vacation. No, you don't have to be on your email every 5 minutes. It is possible to shut down the laptop, stop apologizing about email or Wi-Fi reception. Just say, I'm spending this week with my family on a much overdue vacation. They deserve it and I deserve it. I will see you when I'm back next week.
There you go.
Yeah, I love that. I honestly, I just love that answer, Udi. And like I said, we've met you, so we understand the energy. You know what I mean? But it's something that, like I said, a lot of professionals struggle with, right? That balance, right? Because now your kids, you go from the phase where your kids are like children, like babies, where they need that constant like attention. And you think, okay, once they start walking and talking, they can kind of tell me what they want. I can kind of ease off the gas a little bit. That is okay. But now they go back into that phase again because now they're like young teenagers and now they need that. They need that guidance. They need that tutelage, like, because now they're trying to figure out what kind of adult do I want to be? What kind of career do I want to have, right? And now they need that attention again. So like you said with the burners, like you have to figure out a way to give them what they need, right? So that you can get what you need from them as well, right? And because that's your legacy, right? Your children. You know what I mean? So I love that answer, man. I love that answer.
You know, smarter people than me have said, show me your calendar and I'll tell you your priorities. And many of us do that for work. But then when it comes to personal life, we kind of just go with the flow. That might work for some people. I know for me, the only way to ensure I actually spend the time I want on the things I want with the people I want, I use the exact same system for work and for my personal life. So just like I had this recording scheduled for today to make sure it happens, this weekend we have children's time scheduled, like which parent is going out with which child to give them a one-on-one, half day here, half day there.
I love
and so we don't leave it to chance, because guess what? If you leave it to chance, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen because life gets in the way, and you know, you're doing your taxes, paying the bills, making lunch, and well, poof, the weekend is over. Well, that's not fun. So I'm not a very spontaneous person. Anyone who knows me will tell you that. I do not know how to be spontaneous because my calendar is booked. And if I want to spend the first half day with this daughter and make sure that child goes with their other dad, then I'll be with the other two girls. Like we just plan everything out on the calendar and then it happens.
I love it.
It's not that hard. Just you know, thinking of it, being aware of it.
Yeah, I love it. You was going to say something, Nadege?
Yeah, I wanted to go talk back to the book because I think that's so amazing that you, like you said, you wrote a book and it's something the guys even said, like, that's a sure surprise. I want to know, like, who are you thinking of when you wrote this book for? And what's some advice that you really want them to take away from reading?
So I read a great piece of advice as I was sitting down to write the book, which is the more you narrow the target audience, the more people will actually find it interesting because they'll feel like it was written for them. Some well-intentioned authors, they try to write it for like everyone, but then it ends up being so superficial and watered down that nobody feels it was written for them. So I wrote this for an up-and-coming B2B marketer, probably working for a tech company. And I shared all the lessons I wish I knew 20 years ago, and how I approached brand and how I approached events and how I approached content and how I built a category and how I made my brand look 2 years bigger than it really was, and how I built a courageous team that did their best work for me, and how I aligned with sales like my career depended on it, because guess what? It did. And all that stuff I put into the book. And then since there's thousands of people who've now read it just in the last month, I'm getting everyday feedback into my LinkedIn and email inboxes. And I love hearing from them like, hey, I'm a VC and I really loved your book and I'm buying it for my portfolio companies because that's what I want them to do. And just yesterday, someone commented on my LinkedIn post saying, I know you wrote this for marketers, but actually every CEO should read this so they know what they can expect and demand from their marketer. So I love that new audiences are finding it interesting, but I'm also glad that I intentionally narrowed it to make it super specific, which is also what I advocate for when I talk about creating content. You have to know your audience, and the narrower, usually the better the content is going to be.
Message.
That's the battle.
Whole message. I got to ask you another question. We just had recently, I don't know if you saw it, we had Tarek Hassan on, who was the former CMO of McDonald's, right? So he said something about leadership. He was like, he had these amazing almost, where he basically would tell his marketing team he'd allocate a certain budget, and you got to come up with some wacky or crazy idea that we would never try to do something like that. Like, what was that for you? What was like the
I literally had a budget item called Udi's Crazy Ideas. But then Russell on my team told me one day before we sent it to the CFO, he said, maybe we should just change that wording to marketing experiments so it looks a little bit less wacky. And so that's what they did. But we kept everything else. And it's actually a really important piece of advice. So marketers often ask me, hey, how did you manage to get buy-in and budget for that Super Bowl commercial or that crazy out-of-home campaign or just some weird experiment? And, just like in medicine, the best medicine is preventive medicine. You don't want to go to the doctor when you're sick. You want to go when you're healthy and get all your tests done and see what you need to take care of. And so if you look at a marketing budget, it's the same idea. If you budget that marketing experiments, also known as Udi's Crazy Ideas, you put 5 to 10% of your program budget in that, then you're going to have a much easier time when you need that money going into the year. And here are the two ways that I justify this to any CFO. One, there are going to be marketing experiments that show up throughout the year that I don't know about yet in November when I'm approving my budget. So I need to put that number in there so that if in April I hear about an event happening in September, I don't have to go and ask for new money, which I probably don't get. I just pull it out of this experiments budget. So that's one. And two, and this is very important for demand gen, all of our current demand gen channels, they're going to tap out at some point. Whatever's working now is not going to work in 5 years. And I need to constantly be testing new channels and new mediums and new experiments to see what's going to be the next big thing so that I don't wait until the current ones tap out and then I'm scrambling to find something, because then we're going to see a dip in pipeline. So I'm constantly testing new things. And when I find something that works, I double down on it. If it doesn't work, I scrap it. I document my learning and I move on to the next thing. And that's how I think of my marketing experiments budget.
What was the best experiment? I gotta know now. What was the best experiment? We gotta know what's the best one.
I can tell you, we did some really fun ones. Not all the fun ones were the most effective, but here's a couple examples. So there was a really fun one. After I worked with a company that wrapped Uber and Lyft cars with our branding, and we had them swarm around Dreamforce, the big software event in San Francisco, because we wanted to kind of hijack the traffic, but I didn't want to pay Mark Benioff to get a tiny booth by the bathroom. I didn't want to spend my money on that. So I spent a fraction of that on wrapping these 20 cars that dropped off passengers around the auditorium, and that got a ton of attention. So the same company who did that came to me a few months later and said, Udi, we're testing these food delivery robots in San Jose. They're like delivering pizza door to door, they're hoping that the DoorDashes and the Grubhubs of the future will use these robots. I'm sure you've seen there's companies experimenting with delivery drones now. And so these were land robots that kind of look like like one of those WALL-E. They have these special tracks that they go on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're like, you can wrap these up in like Gong messaging, and we can deliver pizzas to your prospects. You want to try that? I'm like, of course I want to try that. Yeah. Like that's got my name written all over it. So we tried that. It was a very fun experiment. It was not super effective because the databases that we used didn't get us enough like home addresses of the prospects that we wanted to hit for privacy reasons and so on. We didn't want to make it too creepy when delivering pizza to people's home. But I can imagine B2C brands who have this information can have lots of fun with that.
I just want to say something real quick to that too. We had a conversation with a couple of executives about having the allocation of we might need this money on the side, right? Because let's say we're having conversations, right? So we're having conversations. We have events coming up now. We'll say, okay, this event is coming up. we just got added to this event. Would you like to partner with us? They like, yeah, but the budget was already allocated, 4 months ago for this event, right? And then now it's trying to figure out how do you make this partnership work in the last minute, because a lot of the times, yes, planning out is super dope and effective and things of that nature, but you never know who you're going to run into in these conferences. You never know who you're going to meet that might call you up out the blue and say, yo, Udi, I have a great idea for you, right? And you don't want to like miss those opportunities because all the budget's been allocated for the year already, you know what I mean? And then it's like, you missed the opportunity because you didn't have something kind of put off to the side. So I love the fact that you guys do that. And I think, did you put that in the book?
I did. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just hearing you talk, I remembered a really fun one that cost me peanuts and actually was super effective. So because I had done like Super Bowl commercial and other experiments on TV, I sponsored the PGA Golf Tour and the March Madness a couple of years and stuff like that. So I have contacts at NBC and at CBS and others. And one day, a couple of years ago, Jesse from NBC came to me and said, Udi, we're experimenting with this virtual overlay where you can put your logo, Gong's logo, on the Warriors court. Yep. And it's a virtual overlay. So only in the Bay Area, people are going to see that. And we're selling it by the quarter of the game. So if you're willing to experiment with us being one of our earliest clients, like I'll give you 3 quarters in different games for $5,000. I'm like, of course I'll do this. So we did this. And then we finished those 3, and it was really fun because people loved sharing it. And like, did we just see Gong on the Warriors court? Yeah, you did. And then Jesse said, you know what? I'll give you 1 freebie just for being a good partner. And you know what happened on that freebie? Steph Curry broke the all-time 3-pointer career record.
Oh,
and
my God.
The Warriors and NBC and everyone shared that. I've got that tweet. It's in the book. And it's got the Gong logo. Steph Curry's hovering over the Gong logo at the Chase Center in San Francisco. It was wild. So those types of opportunities only come to you because I had the $5,000.
There it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's an amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I know, right? Like you can't make this stuff up.
I want to give you context. I definitely want to get to the Super Bowl and some of the crazy ones too, right? But like we're doing something in common. What you just said is phenomenal, right? And we're thinking of ways. So we're going to talk to you off camera, Udi, but I want to share some ideas that we have because we're not paying for an expensive booth, and we know Meta, Google, and all these other partners are going to do it. And we're going to come up with an interactive
You can't compete with their budget. You've got to get smarter, not richer.
There you go. So we're going to talk off camera about that. But
I'm not gonna lie, Udi. I would have came out of pocket for that. Like some opportunities, and not like diving too deep into your personal, but some opportunities sometimes you got to just believe in it. And I would me personally for $5,000, if I had that, I would have came out of my own pocket.
Biscuit for the biscuit.
Just for that. Like, are you kidding?
Of course, but now that we know how effective it is, nobody's going to give it to you for $5,000. That's the point. I took all these things when they were risky, when nobody was going to talk to Jesse.
You should have locked in your rate. That should have been part of the negotiation.
I really should have.
Listen, I'm going to rock with you, but if this works, I need this price. I need the grandfather price.
100%. Jesse's been good to us. We've been good to him. It's all good.
I love it. That is history. That you are now, you not only you, but your company is a part of history. And not only a part of history, but you are a part of history in a lane that technically you guys don't even really deal with. You guys are not sports guys. You don't have that's what I'm saying. Like that's so awesome that people are like, wow, look at what we've done now across mediums. And now you develop the relationship with them. And now that opens up opportunities for different type of conversations now.
It's credibility, right?
So far from being a sports guy that one of my team members, Russell, had to explain what a 3-pointer was to me when that happened. He had to explain it. I kid you not. Russell had to explain this to me. Love it.
You want to get into the Super? I wanted to go about the Super Bowl ad. What made you? That's a risk it for the biscuit moment. If anything, like what was that process like being involved with it from ideation all the way to execution? What was that?
So the idea is all about punching above your weight. How do you look like your company is much bigger than it really is, which is super important if you're trying to sell to large enterprises. Because here's the thing. Many startups, they build a product or a service for large enterprises. Like, come enterprises, I want to sell you this thing. The problem is large enterprises, they'll almost never buy from small startups because that's very risky. By the time they get through security and IT and legal, that startup could be out of business. So what's a startup to do? Well, one thing you can do, besides building the right product, of course, is doing marketing that makes you look like you're a couple of years ahead of where you really are. And then the large enterprises look at you and say, oh, they look legit. So there's a whole chapter in the book, which is called Punch Above Your Weight, that talks about all these different tricks from the Warrior stuff all the way to Super Bowl. But here's the general idea. What you do is you pick a medium that is typically associated with larger advertisers. Like, who does Super Bowl commercial? Farmers Insurance and Budweiser, right? There's these multi-billion-dollar brands. What am I, a tiny startup, looking for in the Super Bowl? I can't even compete against their budgets or anything, or their creative. Or can I? So here's the thing. You pick one of these mediums, you find a really cheap-ass way of doing something very small, and you get creative with the medium, and you get creative with amplifying it so it looks like you spend 20 times more than what you actually spend, and then poof, you look much bigger than you are. So how do you do this on Super Bowl? Well, on Super Bowl, it turns out that when you all are watching a game, the ads that you see in the break between the third and fourth quarter, some of them are served from the national inventory. Some of them are served from a local city or county inventory. Now, the experience is the same. Now, everybody who's kind of in marketing knows that to buy the national spot in the Super Bowl is crazy expensive. I think last year it was like $7.5 million for one 30-second spot. 30-second spot. And that's before you start spending money on your creative. Now, most companies that buy that spot, they're going to spend a few more millions on getting a superstar and a fancy production company. So you could end up spending $15 million on that one 30-second commercial, which is wild, right? Now, I don't know any startup who has that budget. I definitely did not have it myself. But turns out I could buy regional media for like 5- and 6-figure numbers. So I ended up looking at, where are most of my prospects and customers? Well, they're here in the San Francisco Bay Area. They're in New York, then Chicago. Each of those areas is like, oh, for 100K, I can get New York, or 200K, I can get San Francisco. I got Seattle for 75K. So I buy this puzzle of territories that I care about, because look, guys, I love potatoes just like anyone, but if I'm going to air my Super Bowl commercial in Idaho, it's only the potato growers that are going to be watching it. There's very little tech there. Why would I spend my money on the national spot for the potato growers in Idaho? I love
Message.
there you go. So I ended up spending a minuscule amount of money compared to the national spot on just buying 2 or 3 regions that I wanted. And then I created a creative for the commercial using a company who'd never done a Super Bowl commercial before, but I did some successful videos with them. So I took a chance on them. They took a chance on me. They gave me a really decent 5-figure price. Yeah, not 7-figure in the millions, but 5-figure. I paid less than $100 for that first Super Bowl commercial creative. We shot the commercial. We aired it in 3 regions, and then I amplify it across our social media and mobilized every Gong employee, or Gongsters as we call them, to amplify it to our audience. And then people went wild. They're like, what? Gong just did a Super Bowl commercial? So I don't care about the few people who actually saw it on TV. It's when we amplified it on social media and everywhere else, people are like, damn, this has got to be a real big company. And then guess what? I listened to the Gong recordings of calls during the week after Super Bowl, and I heard hundreds of people come in and say, hey, you know, I'd heard about Gong before. I was kind of on the fence, but then I saw them on the Super Bowl. I'm like, okay, I need to check these guys out. And then they took a demo.
You know who loves you? I know the sales team love you. The sales guys love you, Udi.
They really did. Saw a lot of business from that week.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That Monday morning coming in there, a lot of emails, a lot of, hey, can we get back on
a very hot
this week?
You know, we in our first Super Bowl commercial in 2021, at the end of the week, my CFO came to me, said, Udi, do you realize we just broke our all-time record of pipeline creation in 1 week? That's what happened on Super Bowl week.
Once again, attribution. How are you tracking it, right? Because it's not like they're raising their hand saying Super Bowl ad, right? Did you have a
some of them are, but that's a really good question. So here's what I did. I did 3 things, really, 3.5. So first, while everyone was watching the game, that to this day I couldn't even tell you which teams were playing, I was refreshing my Google Analytics dashboard like the good marketer that I am. I didn't care who's playing on the game. I was refreshing my Google Analytics, and I saw the spike in traffic. I saw the spike in demo requests. And not only during the game, but for the whole week, we had a much higher new baseline of traffic and demo conversions. So that was the first thing I saw. So that's no fluke, right? You know, these are the people who saw the commercial at the exact second that it aired. Boom, you see that spike. 2, I already told you, I used Tracker and Gong. I searched for Super Bowl and I saw who's talking about it. And I found like 455 calls that talked about Super Bowl. And I could filter them further by who said commercial or ad. So I knew that the right people were watching it, because I didn't know if that bet is going to pay off or not. But I could listen to people on the call saying, hey, I saw you all on the Super Bowl. I came and asked for a demo. So that was the second thing I did. The third thing was that report on pipeline creation that the CFO came with at the end of the week. And then the last thing I did was I kept tracking that cohort of opportunities and pipeline created in that week. And I looked what happened to them 3 months, 6 months, 9 months later. So by the time it was time to think about asking for budget for next year, I could say, hey, this is the 7-figure revenue number that was created from the cohort that came in that week from Super Bowl.
Oh my goodness.
There it is. You got the first party data. You have the true first party data, and you used it and you executed it exactly the way you needed to do it. So now it goes from being, are we going to take a chance on this thing, to that's a no-brainer.
No.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. For that year, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, we have to do that. Yeah, that
using your tool to actually use it. So I don't know if you guys know, like the Gong actually records the calls. It has automation, tells you like where in the pipeline the deals are, all types of stuff. Like we use it religiously, right? So for you to use that and say, all right, anybody saying Super Bowl, being able to track that, export that, put that in the system, like that's just creative ways of attribution, right? Like that most marketers are thinking of.
It won't show up on the neat dashboards that most marketers use, but I'm not obsessed about them. If something works really well, there are other ways of finding out.
Yeah, we got get some shit. I'm ready to come up with a campaign right now.
You're running out of gas in the air horn, man.
Yeah, right.
I was not expecting this. Wow. Yeah, I was not expecting it.
Story, man.
I wasn't expecting this. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I knew Udi was gonna drop some bombs on us, but I wasn't expecting him to say the things that he said today. Like it just goes to show, like, you know, when you have the right person in the right role and you support that person, what they can do for the company. You said something that was super important too, that we talk about, right? It's going to work and wanting to be there, Udi. Wanting to be there. You made a statement that was like, yo, I go with my kids, we have a bunch of fun, and then when I get to work, the energy, I'm pumped. You see the difference in your work ethic with you having that feeling, versus you going to work like this fucking slave ship. You know what I mean? Like, I do not want to be here. What time is lunch? I know I'm going to get aggravated. The difference in production is you can't even measure that, right? So I want to say shout out to Gong for again giving you a new position, right? Seeing what kind of asset that you are. They already knew that you were asset, but to keep supporting you and keep enabling you and keep giving you the space and the freedom and the budget to do what you do best, right? Because we've also heard from a lot of execs that come on to say once they get with a company and they start doing so well, they become a threat. They become a threat, right? And you know, your C-suite, but then you know, your CEO or somebody looking at you like, you know, you doing a lot, man. And now let's just say like this, that ad, right? Let's just say Udi did this and Udi did that. Now the calls start coming in specifically for Udi. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, do you want to talk to so-and-so? No, we want to talk to Udi. No, put Udi on the phone.
I'm only one in an army of superstars we have at Gong. We've been very fortunate to not only attract this talent, but also support them and enable them to build their own brands. Nobody at Gong feels threatened by it. They build their brands while they're at Gong. It serves them. It serves Gong. And you know what? At some point, they're going to move on and they're going to take their brand with them. Power to them. All good. All good.
I don't know. I would love to see that non-poaching agreement for Udi. Udi, you got a 10-year non-poaching. 10-year non-poaching.
You know, every employee at Gong gets job offers probably every week. Successful ones, most of them. And it is our job to make them want to stay. Every day they have to choose to stay with us. It's a free market out there.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, in California, you can't really enforce those non-poaching agreements. It's
Really?
if someone wants to move on, they move on. It's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult.
Wow.
And I'm no lawyer, so I won't give any legal advice because I can't.
Right.
But the job, the manager's job, the leader's job is to make their employees come to work every day and want to be there. And at some point they move on. You know, I think there were like 5 years that I had this great streak of not a single employee leaving the team, and we kept hiring more and more people.
Wow.
And it was years before the first one actually walked out and moved on because there were just too many changes and they wanted a new opportunity. But it's an art and a science of how you create a culture that the team is enabled and empowered to do their best work. And I also have a whole chapter on that called Building a Courageous Team in the book, where I interviewed half a dozen of my team members who worked on the team. And I asked them why they came in every day and why they stayed so long and why they were able to produce all this great work. And I took all the lessons that they gave me, which I learned a lot about my team just from asking these questions of my team members. And we put those lessons together so that other teams can go ahead and build their own courageous teams.
Wow. That is amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
So some things I tell the guys is like, right, you should never be pouring from your cup. You should only pour from your saucer. So you're supposed to take the time, fill your cup, and then whatever runs over right into that saucer, that's what you should pour into others. I would love if you could share anything from your saucer to our young people, up and coming marketers, creatives, on, you know, how to be in this business, what's some, you know, lessons learned, any advice you can share with them.
Sure. I'll give two. And again, I know there's a variety of people. Some are in tech, some are like influencers doing their own thing. I think that the two important things I would say is, number one, show how you're making sales easier. Show how you're making sales easier. People will give you budget and time and rope to run with ideas and crazy campaigns if you can show how you're making sales easier. It doesn't all have to show up on a neat dashboard. Attribution is a bottomless problem. There's so many ways of showing how you're making sales easier, but if you can show that, they'll keep coming back to you with more ideas, more budget, more requests. So you have to be connected. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's real.
You have to be connected to what sales is doing, understand where their challenges are and how you can help. The second thing is, you've got to have a point of view. Don't wait to be asked. Don't wait to be told what to do. You have to have a point of view. You have to come with the crazy ideas, and then they might get filtered and you won't be able to pull off everything you want. But people love people with crazy ideas that have an explanation or a hypothesis how this is going to make sales easier. And then you try as many of them as you can. And you know what? Some of them are actually going to work.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Yeah.
I got to ask you a personal branding question. This is my last one for me, right? So you empower the sales team to go out there and do their thing, right? They do the performance reviews. They're showing that they're getting higher sales and all that. How should they value their personal brand when they come to the negotiating table? Because we had Devin on. Like, Devin's our guy. So Devin was one of those guys from Gong that took it. He's got his personal podcast, is doing great. Man, he's a great dude. That's our brother. But like how do you evaluate that when you're talking to a company? You're still in a company. You're doing sales. You're showing pipeline. You're making sales easier. You got your brand, but how do you put that into an actual dollar figure when you negotiate?
So I don't have a formula for putting a dollar figure on it, but LinkedIn gives you some information, and the third-party tools that allow you to get even more detailed information, like who your followers are. Are they in sales? Are they in marketing? Which geographies they're at? Which industries they're at? And depending on the platform and followers you have, that's exactly the audience that some companies are looking for. And if you can show that a match, say, Devin, I forget what number he has, maybe 100,000 followers, maybe more, and they're in sales and marketing, he can show that breakdown. And if he's coming to a young startup that has like 4 followers, including the CEO's wife and mother on the page, and Devin comes with his 100 or 200,000 followers in that exact space, that's got to be worth money to the company. So that's how we'll get the conversation started. And then the second thing is, when someone like Devin or someone else creates the right type of content and links that into a demand gen funnel, get someone to read say an ungated article on LinkedIn, but then that takes them to a gated landing page on the company's website. You can track how many people came from that. And you do one pilot, you know, if it resulted in 0, maybe it's not a good match. Maybe the content was bad. Maybe that influencer doesn't have the right audience for your company. But hey, that resulted in 3,000 downloads of your content, and now you have the emails of those people on your website. Maybe you do another bigger campaign with that person.
That's a win. The funnel, baby. We talk about it all the time. We talk about it all the time.
You know, I know we're coming up on time, Udi. You're an author now. You know, listen, I feel like every time we interview you, your intro is gonna get longer and longer.
Maybe next time I come on, I've got my own Netflix special. I don't know.
We have to allocate a certain amount. Okay, what do we got to add to Udi's intro now? You know, just curious, right? You've seen them out there. I'm pretty sure you've heard them with the wealth of knowledge that you have with the experience that you have. Did you ever thinking about, you know, a lot of people are doing these like master classes now and like really just stepping out on their own and saying, yeah, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to take it upon myself to like teach this to the public in master classes or segments to really make sure that I am getting my message out, right? Because also, if you know what you're doing, you know it works, and you know that you guys are ahead of the curve, right? You can influence so many other people, which can be prospective employees that will eventually join the company, partners. It makes the conversation easier with other companies. Did you ever think about doing something like that? Like, you know, a master class on the marketing or anything like that?
Yeah, so that was really the goal when I sat down and wrote the book.
Gotcha.
I thought, look, I'm doing so many conferences and podcasts. I usually get to a few hundred people at every podcast, every conference.
Right.
I wanted to get to many thousands, and I thought a book would be a great way. And it's really starting to get a life of its own. So not only are people buying it on retail, you know, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, whatever, but they're also inviting me to conferences and book clubs and to speak in front of hundreds of people, and they buy the books for everyone. So I'm able to scale my influence in a way that is bigger than I could do before. So I'm really excited. I'm still just in the midst of this book tour, which I hope continues for a while. But at the same time, I'm still very, very much involved in Gong and spreading that good word of Gong about how Gong is changing the revenue space yet again with our AI. So I've got a lot of exciting things going on.
I love it.
We always ask the last one to end off the conversation. What's the mountaintop though? What's got to be a mountaintop? What's the mama I made it moment so far? What's the mama?
I'm hoping it doesn't exist, because what do I do if I get there? God forbid. What would I do if I ever got there?
I like that too.
I love it. I love it.
What do you do the next morning? What gets you up out of bed? I don't ever want to reach that mountaintop.
I got you. Now, Dad, you got a last question for me?
That was great.
I just want to know, has any of the children showed any interest in what you're doing and say, hey, Dad, you know, I would like to maybe like start learning what you're doing and maybe follow along in your footsteps? That's my last question. Like, are your children, because a lot of the times when they see a parent doing a certain thing and they see like it's obviously financially beneficial and they see the work you're doing, they like, I would love to do that. Have your children express you any interest in maybe following in Daddy's footsteps?
Not in so many words. One of my kids, my son, he likes doing goofy things like his dad does. So he got excited about some of the promo videos I put out there. I don't know if you all had a chance to see any of them, but I created a series of like 4 or 5 short videos to promote the book before it came out. And I knew they have to be audacious and exciting, like the marketing that I talk about in the book. So I put on my best like Elton John jackets with feathers and fur and sequin, and I created these crazy videos that could not be ignored. They could not be ignored. And so my kids got a kick out of watching their dad make an ass of himself yet again.
I love it, man. You know, we don't normally at this part of the show, we would say Udi's part of the family. He already knows that. Udi, you already know you're a part of the family. All we're going to do is just reiterate the fact that you are a part of the More Than a Title family. We know that you're doing amazing things and great things. And we want to just let you know again and reaffirm that we support you, right? The same way that we showed up to your event. Also, just keeping in mind, we have guests, right? We're on 200 plus episodes at this point, right? If you see anybody that you ever want to connect with, right? You don't have to be in the same, space, or it doesn't matter, right? You're already vetted. If you see somebody past, previous, future guests come on. Oh,
Appreciate it.
I would love to connect. All it takes is a text to us. Hey, I'd love to connect with this person. We'll check your schedule. We'll put you guys on, and we'll try to support you as best we can, man. I love it. So with that being said, I ladies and gentlemen, y'all can hold me accountable. I didn't say phenomenal. I didn't say phenomenal. Normally I start off the show so we got another phenomenal guest, but we love Udi and we already knew it was going to be phenomenal, but I'm going to say it now. Udi came on and yet again was another phenomenal guest. Listen, he dropped so many. If you didn't learn something from this podcast right now, you're not paying attention, right? He dropped.
I'll listen to it again. Thanks for having me again, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, he dropped so many jewels. He got the book. Please go out there and support the brother Udi, right? He's on LinkedIn. If you want to get in contact with him, you can just go ahead and type in Udi Ledergor, right? Remember, he's a businessman, so he will get back to you, but give him some time. And, again, told you his story, told you how important it is to manage, right? The 4-burner system, to manage your time, manage your expectations, manage your family, right? He told you how important the support system of having a partner was, how he could not have done it without a support system, right? Once again, he's going to work, he's doing the family thing, he's doing the relationship thing, he's doing it all. He's letting you know, I'm not stopping. There's no mountaintop, which reiterates what we say to end off the show every time. The dream is free. God damn it, the dream is free.
The hustle is sold separately, y'all. More than the title. We love y'all, baby.
Get out of here.
Love you, man.